All right, back here on SportsLine on News Channel 5 Plus. Steve Lehman with you tonight. Our phone lines are open at 737-7767. Sheila's been waiting. Sheila, thanks for doing that. You are on SportsLine.
Yeah, I need to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Back in 2009, I was given a Titans football by Steve McNair months before he got murdered, and he signed the football. But I've been teased about it ever since then by a lot of people saying that was not Steve in that video with me, and that autograph on the football is not Will. They're teasing me, telling me that was not the Will autograph, but yet somebody downtown today asked me to bring the football out to show it to them because they're picking on me, but picking on me ever since they gave me the thing, and now nobody won't help me find out the truth. I want to know, is that the autograph? Was that him in the video, or was it an imposter?
All right, Sheila, I honestly don't know what to tell you just because we don't have the ball, so we can't really verify that for you. But I think somebody with the Titans, or there are also sports memorabilia places out there that can verify that for you as well. That's probably the only options you have at this point, unfortunately, because Steve isn't around and there aren't many other people who can probably verify that for you. So best of luck with that. In terms of the Titans coaching search and the other coaching searches out there, we can take more of your phone calls, 737-7767. I think something that really struck me last week with the way this all went down, regardless of whether you think Mike Munchak should have been fired or whether you thought he deserved another chance coming back, I think you had to be a little disappointed in how the Titans organization came across in the way things went down last weekend. So many other teams out there, the Texans fire their coach with weeks left in the season to get a head start on things. Other teams fired their guys Sunday night or Monday or Tuesday to get on with the process. The Titans go in planning on bringing Munchak back. They bring him down to Houston. They want to bring him back in a way that they offer him a contract extension that reportedly was going to double his salary over the next several years, but they wanted to put strings on him. They wanted to put conditions to that contract offer, and that he was going to have to fire both of his coordinators. He was going to have to get rid of several assistants as well. And when you're firing both your coordinators, even the assistants that you aren't firing at that moment very well could get fired at some point because the new coordinator is going to want to reshape his staff. So in essence, they were saying, we want to bring you back with a contract extension and more money, but you're going to have to get rid of most, if not all, of your staff to do it. To me, you're either all in or you're not when you're dealing with a head coach. And if they believed in Mike Munchak enough, and as he said in his statement when he left the team, that he felt like they were building for next year with their recent moves and last season's free agency and where they got this year, they were building for next year, and they were on the verge of a breakthrough if they could have a healthy quarterback and just add a couple pieces to the puzzle. If you agreed with that assessment, which it appeared that Tommy Smith and Rustin Webster did, why all the conditions? Why do you say we're willing to bring you back, but yet you have to make all these wholesale changes? To me, that just doesn't make sense. Mike Munchak firmly believed he had the shot to break through, and to me, I think he deserved, based off of the way this organization has put him in difficult situations throughout his time. To me, I thought he deserved that season because I thought that was going to be the true judge of the direction this franchise was taking. If you think about it, the Titans botched the Fisher situation at the end of his tenure here. We all remember that. They fire him way late in the season, which means when you finally hire Mike Munchak, he's way behind the game in terms of getting in a coaching staff. So he did not have the opportunity to go out and bring in exactly the guys he wanted on his staff. He had to kind of pick and choose and piecemeal together a staff late in the game. Then you go into the NFL lockout, so you don't have any offseason that year. You draft a quarterback in Jake Locker to be your franchise quarterback, but then somewhere in the organization you decide, we're close this year. We have an opportunity this year to win the AFC South, but we don't think we can do it with a rookie quarterback who hasn't had any offseason work. So we're going to go out and sign a quarterback for big money in Matt Hasselbeck. We're going to play him instead. And the Titans did that, and they almost made the playoffs. They were one game away, one loss by the Jets on the final day of the regular season from getting into the playoffs at 9-7 in Mike Munchak's first year. To me, that was one of the best coaching jobs in the NFL that year, based off of everything that he had to go through. But then when they didn't win the division and they didn't get into the playoffs, their decision at that point was, okay, now we have to step back and go with our rookie. Now we got to go with the guy who's the franchise quarterback of the future in Jake Locker. And we're going to build this team around him with youth and go in that direction. So they let veterans like Jason Jones and Cortland Finnegan go, and they go in a youth movement. A lot of guys in the draft. They go in that direction. Well, then all of a sudden, Bud Adams comes in middle of the season, or in the middle of the offseason, and says, well, actually, if we could get Peyton Manning out of this deal, maybe we should do that and see if we can just break through with him and go in that direction. So you go all in on the Peyton Manning sweepstakes, ignore the huge needs that you need in free agency, you swing and you miss when Manning goes to Denver, and you end up not really getting anything out of that free agency period. The Titans brought in next to nothing 2 years ago in free agency, and they paid the price. A young team with a first-year quarterback who got injured during the season, with no real added pieces in free agency, went 6-10 and got beat around pretty good. Worst defensive record in franchise history, 471 points allowed. They get to the offseason, and it's obvious there need to be some changes because there were no changes that previous year. And Mike Munchak finally took that as an opportunity to go out and get the staff that he was not afforded the opportunity to get in his first year. Go out and bring in a guy like Greg Williams. Go out and change some of the guys and some of the pieces on the offensive side of the ball. Bring in a guy like Sean Jefferson, Sylvester Croom in the backfield, and really get a coaching staff that he felt most comfortable with. And the Titans put in the investment into free agency. $100 million spent to upgrade this team. And they go out there this year, and they were improved, folks, in every phase. This was a team that was statistically better in every phase of the game. And they had individuals on the field who had the best years of their career. Delaney Walker had the best year of his career. Kendall Wright looked like a breakout performer. Justin Hunter looks like a guy that's going to be a star down the road. The defense had guys that stepped up and made you think that they can be key cogs down the road. Alteron Werner had a career. Jarrell Casey looks like a star in the making. Michael Griffin had his best year in several years. There were a lot of positives going in the right direction, but the quarterback gets hurt again. And that is a real issue. Instability at quarterback has been a huge problem for sure, and you still don't have the answer for Jake Locker and whether he will be available next year. But the bottom line is this team was 3-1 and looking very good when Locker goes down the first time. Fitzpatrick comes in, loses a couple games. Locker comes back and goes 1-1. And then he gets hurt in the season. At that point, is essentially over. They struggled with Fitzpatrick down the stretch. At the end of the year, this was a team that was 4-2 with Jake Locker playing games. And it was a team that was 3-6 with Ryan Fitzpatrick starting games. You throw in the Jacksonville game in there as well. Whatever category you want. Locker started and played about 3 series and then was done for the rest of the season. But this was a team that was winning with its quarterback and lost with its backup quarterback. And yes, that ultimately stops with the head coach and everybody involved. But you never got to fully see what the plan for this season was supposed to be. They had to change the offense to cater to Ryan Fitzpatrick. And to me, that's an indictment of what they did last season to bring in a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick that doesn't really fit your offensive scheme. But who does that fall on? Is that a Mike Munchak thing? Or is that a front office thing in Rustin Webster? Those are the guys that have the ultimate say in who you bring and who you build this roster with. So if you were getting rid of Matt Hasselbeck and going for a backup quarterback, to bring in a guy who's most comfortable in a 5-wide, no-huddle, up-tempo offense that slings it around the field and isn't as comfortable in a ground and pound offense that you've established this team to be and wanted it to be under Jake Locker, is that the head coach's fault? Or does that fall somewhere else? I'm not trying to sit up here and say that I think Mike Munchak was Vince Lombardi or headed in that direction. But I do think that there were several roadblocks to his tenure. And they were finally getting to that point where it potentially looked like they could turn the corner. And he had been saying all along that we need one more offseason to address some of these things, and we need a quarterback to stay healthy. We need Jake Locker to stay healthy. And he was even going to have a real decision this offseason how to treat Jake Locker. Do you draft a quarterback? Do you bring in another quarterback? How are they going to move forward with that? That was going to be a question. But to me, I think based off of the obstacles, Mike Munchak deserved year 4 because that was going to be make or break. You either go in and you make the playoffs and it's obvious that everything went in the right direction, or you don't. And then you start over. Now you're in that awkward phase where Locker's going to be back, but you're bringing in a new quarterback who's now trying to start his system, his organization here. I think that's a tough position now for whoever the new coach is going to be to come into for this franchise. So I think once again, there's a lot to point to be upset about with the Titans organization. And to me, the way it went down again in Houston last week where they wanted to bring Mike Munchak back and then all of a sudden they put conditions on him and he couldn't do that and that's how he leaves, that doesn't look good on anybody. And when Rustin Webster goes to the podium on Saturday night to talk about why he lets Munchak go and what he wants to look for, these two quotes stood out to me. He said, number one, I think Mike Munchak inherited a really, really difficult situation. He was taking over for a guy who'd been in the organization for a long time in Jeff Fisher. Things had been done one way for a really long time. And he was working under an old owner that had done things same way for a long time. And in fact, that owner passed away during his tenure. He had several other factors that played against him in a real transition process for this franchise. And Webster finished that statement by saying, Mike Munchak left this place better than when he took over. And I thought to myself, if he left the place better than when he took over, why are you getting rid of him? And then he followed that statement up by answering a question from someone about what's the type of coach you want to come in? What are you looking for? And Rustin Webster said, I want a coach who's like Mike Munchak, that I can work with, that I can get along with, that we see eye to eye with, and have the same philosophies about football. He then went on to say that he wants a guy with a plan, somebody who understands the roster and has a clear plan for what we have here in the nucleus that we have. But he started it off by saying he wants the same guy that he just walked out the door. If you're going to go away from him, okay. If you don't think he's the right guy, okay. But just make a stand and go in that direction. Make the choice and say it's time to move on. I think there were way too many comments this week that sort of seemed like, well, we're not really sure if this is what we want to do. He was pretty good for us. We wanted to have him back, but it just didn't work out. That's not how you run your franchise. You have to be on top of it. You have to be decisive when you make these moves. And the Titans were anything but that last week. So I think it really begs a question. I've asked this on Twitter, and so far the response has been not positive from the fans. But when you see things like that, when you see the direction this franchise has taken for the last several years, and then you see the way this all played out last week, what makes you believe that they're going to make the right hire over the next several days, and that coach is going to be put in a situation where he is set up to succeed? Because I'm telling you, this new coach comes into a situation now where his first choice will be, we have a franchise quarterback who's due $13 million in an option in May, and we have all indications that he's coming back to be this quarterback next year of this team, what do you want to do with him? And do you want to do anything else with the quarterback position in terms of the draft or in terms of free agency? You have a similar decision about Chris Johnson. Do you want to pay that money? Do you want him to be a part of your offense? And you have other guys on this team that you're going to have to make that decision about as well. So that new coach has a lot of questions. He doesn't get to start over because, as they've said, they feel like they've got a strong nucleus here that they can move forward with. They just need to make some tweaks. So how much influence does that new coach have, and how ready is he to take on the hurdles and the challenges that will be pressed upon him as soon as he walks in the door? More of your phone calls coming up. 737-7767 is the number. We will get to them when we come back. Stay with us. This is SportsLine.